Running backs have been disvalued for years now, and I'm done with it. I want to put some respect back on the name of running back, so we're going to go over my top 10 running back prospects in the 2024 NFL Draft. Starting with number 10, Braelon Allen coming out of Wisconsin. The dude is a big boy. 6'1", 235 pounds, so it should be to no one's surprise that he's big, which means he's strong, which means he eats contact. He brings that physicality to the position. And honestly, surprisingly light on his feet. He's got a shiftiness to him. I wouldn't say he's elusive. I would say he's got this great lateral ability because he doesn't. But he's shown to be shifty in tight quarters, and that's what you're going to use him as, a power back. He's also one of the youngest prospects in this class in general. He's going to be 20 at the start of his rookie season, and unfortunately, he's coming off a down year there at Wisconsin and under new head coach Luke Fickell, as it seems like the system didn't really contribute to what Allen does best, as you saw some inconsistencies with his vision, his patience. He wasn't nearly as good in pass protection as he was in past years, which is surprising because when you're that big, typically you're probably a good pass protector. And then just fumbles, ball security issues have been kind of a theme for him for a couple of years now, but it just didn't highlight what he is great at. And especially, I wish he was used more in the passing game as a receiver because he's got better ball skills than you expect. Like, the hands are a lot more softer than you expect. And if you get him out in space, get him lined up with a smaller defender, then God rest that defender's soul, because he is going to pound him. He is. He's going to do it. Now, I wish that Allen tested out. He did the bench, and then I think just the vert at the combine. Would have liked to see him do the agility drills, because again, not the most laterally gifted athlete, but it would have been nice to see. Nice to see that if those light feet kind of like translated into some of the workouts. And I am a little curious of like the launch speed. Like, I think he's probably going to be like a 4.6. If you get under 4.6, then I would be ecstatic. Truly would. And I went ahead and comped him to Rashad Jennings, another guy who was coming out of Liberty. For a bigger back, he was a little shiftier than you would expect. But he honestly had decent launch speed. And I am curious if Allen's going to end up testing out at his pro day, though I think that's past, so I don't even think he's going to do that. So we're just kind of stuck with what we know about him. You could go back to Bruce Feldman's Freaks List in 2022, where he mentioned him just running a 10-yard split in 1.49 seconds, which is crazy explosiveness for a running back. I mean, to give you context, like Trey Benson had one of the best 10-yard splits at 1.52. And I'm just going to say, based on his vert, based on his broad, I don't think he was going to get to that 1.49 number. That's just me, though. Coming in at number 9, I got Audric Estime out of Notre Dame. Another big back here at 5'11", 222 pounds. And I really love the comp. I really do. If you're not familiar with Chris Carson coming out of Oklahoma State, I believe he was either a 7th rounder or a UDFA, but he ended up carving out a solid role for himself with the Seahawks, and just unfortunately injuries ended up just catching up with him. But I see a lot of Carson's game in Estime. I really do. And Estime just had a phenomenal year where he had 64 forced missed tackles. He averaged 4.27 yards after contact. That's just a great number there. He was a very good pass blocker as well. He improved in terms of fumbles. Like, it was a fumbling mess in 2022. This year, only one fumble. There really is a ton to like about him. He just eats contact so well. He's very light on his feet for a bigger back. I like the explosiveness from him. I was a little shocked at the combine. He ran a 4.71. Comes back to his pro day and makes that a hell of a lot better at 4.58. But you saw the explosiveness in the vert. You saw the explosiveness in the broad, which is why I have him ahead of Braelon Allen, who I would say both those are power backs. but give me the more explosive one. Now, of course, being a bigger back, he's not going to have long speed. Being a bigger back, these guys normally aren't the most dynamic runners. They're not shifty. They're not going to put you on stilts. They're really just going to run right through you. The change of direction won't be great. The stop-start ability won't be great. But to me, it kind of is what it is. You know what he is, and if you need that role in your rotation, in your running back room, this is a great player to add. Doesn't bring a lot in terms of the passing game outside of just being a really good pass blocker. But again, that's fine. You know who he is. You know what he is. I'd be A-okay with that. Listen, I know you love the NFL draft as much as I do, and you're going to want a nice hefty watch list of players during this college football season. Well, go ahead, check out my draft guide. You can purchase it for only $30 by Venmoing or PayPaling me. Links in the description. It's a one-time payment, and you get it for this whole draft cycle and forever and always, technically. It's a Google spreadsheet, so send me your email when you send the payment. I'll get you hooked up. You will see my current prospect rankings and big board, my full evals. And guess what? It updates throughout the whole draft cycle. So it's a great purchase, and it's a great way to support the channel. At number 8, I have Marshawn Lloyd out of USC. This could come as a surprise for a lot of people that I'm not nearly as high on Marshawn Lloyd as the general consensus. And I'm gonna be honest, like the things that kind of make me stop and pause is drops, pass protection, fumbles. 3 areas that he was just awful at this past season. And for me, I could only boost him up so high because I ain't gonna lie, the cat is an unbelievable athlete. Out in space, how shifty his feet are, how light his feet are. Golly, dude, he is tough to put a hand on. He's got a nice low center of gravity at 5'9", and then 221 pounds, so he's got some nice girth to him. And honestly, does a good job of beating tackles, but he does an even better job at forcing guys to just miss altogether. Like, the makings of a very, very dangerous back are there. It's just I'm kind of scared with, again, fumbles, drops, pass protection. Sometimes he gets too bouncy in the backfield and just doesn't really accept what is given to him. Instead of getting maybe a 1-2 yard gain, you ended up getting no gain, or you're losing like 2 yards. I kind of wish he would just kind of like settle for what he's been given. And he's a guy that never has really had a full workload in college, but in today's game, I don't really think that matters none. Again, I mean, we're in the age of more committee backfields, so that's kind of irrelevant to me. But again, the makings of a really good back are there. And I mean, to top it off, he's a really good person as well. If you're unfamiliar, he had a really devastating leg injury at South Carolina early in his career where he tore his ACL, and it really cost him some time, like through the first 2 seasons of his career. And that took that weighed on him, that screwed with him mentally. And now he participates in Shops with Jocks, which is a program where he goes Christmas shopping for kids. He also has been involved in like panel discussions regarding just student athletes, injuries, the mental tear, how to keep positive in those situations. Like, the dude's a great guy. He really is. It's just, I don't know if I'm more willing to bet on that ability at probably the beginning of the 4th round. That's why he's like 150 on my big board. And like, honestly, if he could, like, I think if he could hit on all that, if he could fix the fumbles, fix the drops, fix the pass protection, which, I mean, the dude was a good pass protector, I believe he was all right pass protector at South Carolina before he came over to USC. But if you could fix all those things, like, legitimately, I could see him being like a D'Angelo Williams in the league. At number 7, I have Isaac Guerendo out of Louisville, coming in at 6 foot, 221 pounds. And I was just talking about traits with Marshawn Lloyd. Well, shoot, man. Guerendo has all the traits, because at that size, for him to move the way he did at the combine was jarring. Ran a 4.33 40, had 41.5 inches in the vert. He had 129-inch broad. His agility drills were really good. But to be fair, that should have been expected. He's got a good track background back in high school, but the dude just has never had a big workload, and injuries played a lot into that. He spent 5 years at Wisconsin. He redshirted his freshman season, but then he was hampered by a hamstring injury in 2019. And then in the shortened 2020 season, he only played game because he was still being hampered by that hamstring injury. And then in 2021, he had a season-ending Liz Frank injury. And then in 2022, he was actually able to play in all 12 games, but he was primarily a backup because, Braelon Allen was there. And he decides to transfer, and honestly was phenomenal when called upon there at Louisville. I know you look at, okay, he had 800 yards, 200 some yards receiving. He was really just split in time there with, who's the other Louisville back? His name is on the tip of my tongue. It's like Jahar Jordan. There we go. But he was really just split in time with him. But this is a dude that doesn't have a lot of mileage. He's a guy with a lot left in the tank, low mileage, a lot of tread on the tires. And if you could really tap into how good of an athlete he is, you could really have something special here. Because you go to his tape, I really like the balance. I like the speed. He was a problem out in space. And he didn't just show it as a receiving option. Like, he returned kicks pretty nicely as well. And now with the new kickoff return rule, yeah, I want this guy on my team. Hell yes. Hell yes. But you can see his lack of reps in how he runs the football, because he runs pretty upright sometimes. You don't love that. That's going to take away from your contact balance when you're just giving guys a bigger hit zone. There's times where the vision could be a bit inconsistent. I think he does a good job of keeping his head on a swivel. He just doesn't always pick the best lanes to go through. So, definitely he's a guy that could definitely use a bit more nuance, a bit more development in his game. But the traits are just freaking flabbergasted. I'd be willing to take a shot on this guy at the back end of the third round. Could even go higher. Again, with the new kickoff rule, I think he's kind of in play for somewhere in the third round, because that fast and being that big, kind of nice. At number 6, I have Ray Davis out of Kentucky, coming in at 5'8", 211 pounds, and he honestly has one of the best stories here in the draft, as at the age of 12, him and his 10 siblings found themselves homeless, and there's a very touching story where he had to split off from his younger siblings so that they could go have a home, and then how he bounced around and eventually found himself a home. Very touching. If you haven't checked it out, go ahead, check that sucker out. But he started his career over at Temple, where he started 6 of their 12 games, ended up being a first team all freshman, and he was second in school history in every freshman Russian category, only trailing behind was it Bernard Pierce, which that name should be familiar with some, maybe some more of the older heads. I say older heads, I don't know, maybe decade ago, 15 years ago, something like that. But after the shortened season in 2020, he decided to transfer to Vandy, and unfortunately he had a season-ending injury to his toe. Came back the next season, started all 12 games, but was like, I really want to make a name for myself in the draft. I'm going to go Kentucky. I'm going to compete. Had a phenomenal year. He was second team all SEC. And this dude just gets positive gains. I love it. Absolutely love it. I love the build, first of all. Dude is literally got that nice low center of gravity, built kind of like a bowling ball. I put here 13-pound bowling ball. Typically if you're a bowler, you're bowling with 14 to 16 pounds. He's a little lighter than that, but a guy that can get the damage done. Truly. And He's very decisive as a runner. He shows good patience, good vision, but once he plants that foot, he shows, I think, pretty solid burst, gets the top speed fairly quickly. And honestly, the way he tested out of the 44.52, that's solid enough launch speed for me. It truly, truly is. I mean, he was clocked in last year at one point at close to 22 miles per hour. So it's nice to see that game speed there, you know? And for a guy you wouldn't expect to be that good in the passing game, he kind of was. And like, he had a relatively high yards per route ran for the position. Typically, you know, you go in there, you look at a running back's yards per route ran, and it's in the negatives because just screen central. But no, this dude's going out and he's running routes, and he was pretty darn good. 324 receiving yards. Yeah, I like that. I mean, he's still developing as a pass catcher, and he's still developing as a pass blocker. But honestly, all those arrows are pointed in the right direction for me. However, not the most dynamic guy, not the most dynamic runner. I don't think the stop-start ability is like top notch, though. I did like seeing what I did in the shuttle. But all in all, he kind of reminds me of DeAndre Swift. I think Swift's launch speed might be a little bit better, but I don't know, man. I'm behind Ray Davis. He's just outside of my top 100. But in terms of like total package, there's not many guys who have that, who are phenomenal guys, phenomenal like patient vision guys, really good out the backfield, can run routes, can pass protect, can catch the football. Like he checks a lot of boxes. At number 5, I got Tyrone Tracy Jr. out of Purdue, and I know you see the comp. Calm down. I said Deebo Samuel-esque. I ain't calling him Deebo, but I think you could utilize him in a similar manner, whether it's in the backfield, whether it's as a pass protector, whether it's out wide in the slot, as a kick returner, punt returner. He can literally do it all. And that's what I love about him so much. And it's not surprising that he's a good pass catcher because, fun fact, he was a wide receiver for 5 years. 5 years. So, coming out of Indiana as a high school recruit, he was Indiana's Gatorade Player of the Year in 2018. Played basketball, ran track, was recruited as a wide receiver, played wide receiver for 4 years at Iowa, comes to Purdue, still playing wide receiver, and finally makes the transition to running back, where he played in all 11 games with 9 starts, and he was also their primary kick returner and was phenomenal. The workload, like, he didn't have a ton of touches, but 46 forced missed tackles, 4.4 yards after contact are great numbers. He was really good as a pass protector. As you can see, 428 return yards. Dude, I love this cat. Nice muscular frame, can take a hit, shows good vision, combines that with a nice jump cut. And then, like, this dude got put on my radar, not during the season. It was at the Hula Bowl where I was like, oh, this cat looks really good. So I go back, I look at some of his analytics, some of his numbers. I was like, ooh, I think I'm going to go back and watch him. And then he ends up getting an invite to the Shrine. And I was like, I have to go back and watch him. I did. I loved it. And then he goes to the Combine, because that was one area I was like, I don't know about his testing. We'll see. We'll see. I don't think it's going to be high end. Ha! Ha, I say. Dude had phenomenal explosive and agility numbers in drills. I love this cat. I absolutely do. And despite not playing running back for long, the vision's really good. Maybe it's just from all the kick returns he had to return. Now, it doesn't have like the home run speed. Does run more like a wide receiver than a running back at times. So you kind of want to see him get a little bit lower. And this was his first year playing running back, but I think that the arrows are pointing up to me, man. I love this cat. I love this cat, and I could not include him in my top 5. I got him 95 on my overall big board. I put his role in the NFL is let him do whatever the hell he wants. At number 4, I have Blake Corum out of Michigan, coming in at 5'8", 204 pounds. He's coming off a very very good year. Not as impressive as his 2022, but 28 total touchdowns. I ain't going to argue with that. He was a third-team All-American. And honestly, coming into this season, my biggest question was, are we going to see that burst, that explosiveness after, if you're unfamiliar, back in 2022, he tore his meniscus and sprained his MCL. And I was kind of wondering, how would he come back? Because really, I thought he could have entered the draft. Like, no problems asked. I was kind of shocked that he came back, but I guess everybody was like, hey, Michigan's going to win the Natty. Come on back and have that moment with us. And he was like, got it. So he returns, wins the Natty, and this year, his yards after contact weren't that great. The forced missed tackles were few and far between, only 30 on the season. He had far over 200 carries, 2.42 yards after contact, not a great number. So I was a little worried. I was a little concerned. And then he comes into the combine, and the agility drills are nice. He tests well in the vert. People are going to be like, look at them bench. He's so strong. He's also got really short arms, guys. Come on. Like T-Rex benching. Of course, this bench is going to be good. Still, 27 is a good number. I ain't going to front. I'll be lucky to... I don't think I'm putting up one at 225 nowadays. There was a time, but even then, I don't think I'd be hitting double digits. I got punter strength. There's some punters, though, that can bench. This is why I shouldn't crap on punters and kickers. But in terms of what does he bring to the table, because he is a undersized back. What he brings is that nice low center of gravity, very quick feet, great vision, good stop-start ability, a sturdy frame, a strong frame, good lower body. You kind of saw that in the Alabama game. You saw that in the Washington game. And I honestly, like, my comp for him is Kenneth Walker, because I think they just have elite vision. Like, they find the hole, they find the best lanes to run no matter what. They are really good at that. Not necessarily like Kenneth Walker, a little bigger. I mean, height-wise, I think Kenneth Walker's only like 5'9", but Kenneth Walker's got more pounds on him. But really, it's more so in terms of that vision. Now, not going to have ideal launch speed. 4.53, I was kind of shocked that he ran that. But again, with short legs, I don't think that I think he's going to be a guy that probably gets caught from behind on bigger chunk plays, but that's fine. If he can get chunk plays, then that's good in my book. I did already mention his broken tackle ability was down this past season, and honestly, right now, doing nothing in the passing game. Isn't like he's work in progress as a pass protector, and he is just wasn't heavily utilized in the passing game. So you're probably using this guy part of your rotation as like an early down back, someone you want to maybe use around the red zone. And but like, the dude's a good player. He's a good player, deserves to be up here. I think when it comes to what's upstairs, that vision, that patience, it's already like high end in the NFL. Coming in at number 3, I have Jonathon Brooks at Texas, coming in at 6 foot, 216 pounds, and the dude had a really good season. He redshirted his freshman season, 2022. He was mainly a reserve because, Bijan and Roschon were there. And then this season, he actually entered the year as the backup to CJ Baxter. But when Baxter kind of went down with injury, he stepped up and he was the starter ever since. Unfortunately, he did have the ACL injury against TCU. But we're not going to see him test out, but it sounds like everything from the ACL is like he's recovering A-OK, should be ready by camp. So that's kind of a non-concern to me. So what about Brooks, the prospect? What are you going to love? That the mileage is low. Like if you go back to his high school, like stats, like this dude was given a massive workload. And then he gets to college and really didn't have a big workload until this past season. So he's working with a lot of tread on the tires, low mileage. So you really like that. He was a very good pass protector this past season. But as a runner, he's a tough runner. I like the leg drive. He drives through contact really, really well. And like, you're not going to stop him with an arm tackle. You're just not. He's shown good patience. He's shown a pretty decent vision. I think there's times where he just doesn't look for those like backside lanes to open up. So it might be more of a gap scheme running back, but I mean, I don't think he's like a scheme dependent. I don't think he'll be scheme dependent. It kind of matters a little bit less at running back. But also a dude that has very loose ankles, good at planting the foot, turning upfield, and I thought he had decent straight line speed. And the dude's just not going to be like the most dynamic guy. He is fully a one cut and go, a plant the foot and go type of guy. That is who he is. That's why my comp for him is Jerome Ford, who I absolutely loved coming out of Cincinnati. We got a little bit of the taste of what he would look like in the NFL this year after Nick Chubb went down. So I know some people will be like, oh, that's a knock. No, I really like Jerome Ford. So that ain't a knock to me. Wasn't really used a ton as a receiver of the passing game. So route tree's kind of whatever. The ball skills are kind of whatever. I think he had 16.7 drop rate this past year. So you're not going to really use him as a receiver, at least early on. But had a phenomenal year, man. Like, good for him. He was one of these guys that just kind of came out of nowhere. And every year during the draft process, you're looking for those guys. At number 2, I have Jaylen Wright out of Tennessee, coming in at 5'11", 210 pounds. And yeah, the dude can fly. That shouldn't be surprising. That 4.38 number shouldn't be surprising because yeah, he was kind of a monster in high school at track, where he won an indoor state title for the 55-meter dash as a sophomore, and he had the fastest mark in the country during that year. So yeah, we know the dude is fast. He's got great acceleration. He's got great burst. He's got legit home run speed. But it ain't just that. He runs with a really good pad level, and he's got pretty solid contact balance. His 4.35 yards after contact, again, among the highest in this class. That's typically one of the biggest stats I go and look for when I'm looking for, okay, who can translate? Let me see them yards after contact average. So I like that. He shows good patience, good vision. The unfortunate thing is at Tennessee, typically that's a system that's going to give you wide open holes. Like they're going to give you a lot of space to work with, and that was no exception because boy, he took advantage of that. I think he had how many? He had 4 runs of 40-plus yards and then 35 runs of 10-plus yards. Golly, dude. That's insane. But I will say once like he went to like bounce to the outside or get outside of the hashes, the vision's not nearly as good. And a lot of times once he gets outside, he's really looking just to beat you with speed. He's hoping to beat you to the sideline before the defender, and that's not always going to work out. The lateral ability, I think, is kind of whatever. It's solid. It's not high end, in my opinion, and just wasn't really utilized a ton as a pass catcher. And I mean, even if you see him run routes, like they're a bit rounded, so it kind of like needs to work on properly just running his routes. But there is definitely a receiving ability that you could tap into just because he is such a threat out in space. I think he's probably, you want to go to like an inside zone heavy scheme until like his vision gets a little bit better. And that reminds me quite a bit of Rachaad White coming out of Arizona State, where yeah, the vision's not exactly where you want it to be, but there's certainly a lot of good ability there that you could tap into. And we've seen it this season where Rachaad White, I would say, had his breakout year. At number 1, and it's not even close, is the love of my life, Trey Benson out of Florida State, coming in at 6 foot, 216 pounds. And I call him love of my life, but when it comes to draft prospects, you may love someone. There's always someone else out there that just loves them a little bit more. As that franchise guy was like, oh man, he's a first round caliber back, and I'm like, I'm not there. I would take him in the top 50, but I do love Benson. I think without a doubt he is the best back in this class. He was my top back after my summer evals last year, and he remains my top back throughout this whole stinking process. I am a big mark for Trey Benson. If you're unfamiliar with Benson, actually his freshman year at Oregon, he suffered a major knee injury. It was a non-contact injury, and he ends up coming back from it. A lot of people are kind of curious, okay, well, what will his medicals be? I'm not worried about it. That was like all of 4 years ago. But he eventually transfers to Florida State, where he had 2 very phenomenal years. Unfortunately, Florida State, they're kind of a running back by committee, and he never really got the workload I think he deserved there at Florida State. But despite that, the production was a little bit down in terms of like the forced missed tackles, the yards after contact. But we've seen what he is capable of in 2022, and I know he's got the home run speed, 4.39 in the 40. He has kick return experience. I wish he was utilized a little bit more in the passing game, outside of just, here's a screen, go run. I mean, it worked. I can't knock it, but he's also a very good pass protector, explosive athlete, powerful build, able to just kind of run through tackles at some point. But oftentimes he to create those forced missed tackles, he likes to beat you with his athletic ability rather than, actually eating contact sometimes. I did notice like sometimes he runs with high pads a little bit, so that does take away from your contact balance. There wasn't much like in terms of his vision. I think his vision was fine, but I kind of talked about that with our last guy, Jaylen Wright, that the backside vision. Oh, no, that was Jonathon Brooks. Number 3 on this list, that the backside vision, he doesn't really look to maybe cut it back, and you kind of wish he would do that more. So the vision, still a work in progress, but it's still pretty darn good. Like it truly is. I think he's gonna probably, his weight in the league, he's probably gonna hover closer to that 220, but shedded probably like 5 pounds for his 40, and golly, man. Yeah, his 40 was a pretty darn good. And if you've only checked out his 2023, I highly suggest you take a look at his 2022, because there's a case you could have made that he was the best running back in 2022 college football. There, I said it. I think Blake Corum, Bijan Robinson, you can make great cases for them, but like, when it came to forced missed tackles, he had 79 forced missed tackles in 2022, which was the 6th most in the nation, despite all the guys ahead of him having 100 or more carries. He had a ludicrous forced missed tackles per carry. Like, that number was just unreal, ungodly. Did kind of fall back to earth this year, but that's fine. You know what he's capable of. I mean, it was still a good number this year nonetheless. So if you're not completely sold on Trey Benson as running back 1, I would suggest taking a look at 2022 and knowing what he is fully capable of, because I would say this past season at Florida State was just a little taste. Was like, yeah, this is like the bare minimum of what you're getting. You want to see the high upside? Go take a look back. But man, yeah, no, I love me Trey Benson. But if you want to know why Will Shipley is running back 11 for me, go ahead, purchase my draft guide. I promise you won't regret it. And if you want more draft content, I've been doing my final rankings for the 2024 NFL draft, so you can check out those videos down here. But as always, until next time, be easy, my friends. Later.